All right, man, peace. You know, in the Bible, it states that ye shall know a tree by its fruit. Well, you know, that's true. And the opposite is true as well. You shall also know fruit by its tree. What do I mean by that? You can oftentimes tell the personality of certain fans by who it is that they adore. In the case of Mr. Russell Westbrook, most of his fans seem rather slow. And Russell's not slow per se. He's just slow on the court. He does not truly understand the meaning of his words. He does not understand the consequence of many of his sentiments. He stated before this current Game 4, which is at halftime right now, that he was going to make sure that Ricky Rubio did not get off. And when I heard that comment, the only thing that told me is that, number one, Russell Westbrook has no respect for his coach. The coach has no control over the team. And Russell will totally disregard his teammates to make sure that his personal matchup does not make him look bad. Meanwhile, the liberal sports media was going gaga over Russell as usual. Oh, Russell, he's so competitive. I love hearing that. What are you talking about? Every team has a defensive scheme. Meaning what? You have to rotate to assist your teammates. All great defenses know that the number one rule of defense on a team level is sacrifice. You have to be willing to guard your man and whoever else is approaching the basket, or if you have a teammate who may be defensively deficient, to help him out. But you have to do your part. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And Russell Westbrook did not understand that. That is why he's not a leader. That is why he will never be an elite level player, because his basketball IQ is too low. Well, Kenny Smith finally seems to be coming around and understanding exactly who and what Russell Westbrook is. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. He's not. But once again, every generation you have these type of players. They're just never going to get it. They have outstanding individual physical talents. In the 80s, it was Dominique. In the 90s and 2000s, it was Allen Iverson. Now in the 2010s, you have Russell Westbrook. These are guys who are fun to watch. They're going to score 45, 50 points. They'll get to the playoffs. And if they're the ones leading their team, they may get to the second round. Whenever they do get knocked out, they're going to go out with a bang. And that's going to be that. They're the action movie versions of the NBA. That's it. They're not a great dramatic movie. They're not going to win the big award because that's just not who they are. They don't have that level of depth to their abilities, particularly mentally. But anyway, I'm going to let them talk about it. I'm going to chime in. Just pay very close attention to Mr. Kenny Smith and what he's addressing pertaining to Mr. Russell Westbrook.
And as soon as you touch them, they're going to flop like Rubio out there flopping. Make my man Westbrook get 4 fouls. He out there flopping.
Now, did you hear what Shaquille O'Neal said? He said, my man Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has developed a very potent cult of personality throughout the liberal sports media, especially amongst former players. I noted this in previous videos. He's the player that many of them have latched onto because allegedly he represents what 90s basketball was about. And of course, I have many old head NBA fans who come on my channel and want to wax halcyonic on 90s basketball. Once again, 90s basketball was great, particularly in the early 90s. 80s basketball was great. To me personally, the worst basketball that I've seen as an NBA viewer was in the extremely late 1990s into the early 2000s, right after Jordan retired, where the NBA was trying to kind of find its way. They were being kept afloat by the LA Lakers. But that's neither here nor there. I think that the NBA has made a good comeback. I think that we're seeing some of the best basketball that we've seen in the NBA since the mid-90s. And I think that there is a retinue of extremely charismatic young NBA stars, so they're in a very good stead. But when I see Westbrook play, I don't think of the 1990s because he would not have been allowed to play like that back in the 1990s. No way in hell would he have been allowed to play like that by any reputable coach. But it is what it is.
Trying to run over people. That was a charge.
It's not a charge.
Both of those were charges.
It's not.
My thing, I said at the
Stop
beginning,
trying to use strategy.
to me, after the beginning of the game.
Now, did you hear what this jackass Shaquille O'Neal said? He said, play ball, stop trying to use strategy. Shaq is proof that it does not matter how many college degrees you have, you can still be an idiot.
Of the game, I said, it really doesn't matter. Russell Westbrook was talking about stopping Rubio. That's not how you stop the Utah Jazz.
Thank you, sir. But he does not grasp that because his mind is only calibrated for self-aggrandizement. That's how he's programmed. He cannot change. And some of his fans get upset by what I say. It's nothing personal. I don't dislike the brother. I think that he's a great individual talent, but he's not a great basketball player. He plays great, but he is not a great player. It's a big, big difference. It's like some of these cats who come into my comments and they try to argue about the LeBron James versus Larry Bird comparison. And the new argument is amongst the LeBron James superfans, and I first heard it from Shannon Sharp, is that, Larry Bird only averaged 15 a game in 1981 when he won his first title. So how come nobody says anything about that? But when LeBron has a bad series against the Dallas Mavericks, people talk about him. You have to understand the difference between winning and losing. And when you're a super fan or a fanboy, or as I call them, fag boys, you lose all sense of reality. You lose all proper scope. So you're no longer able to evaluate things. You're no longer able to observe objectively and evaluate and analyze because you're so stuck in your own rabbit hole of trying to make sure that your idol maintains his aura. Let me break it down like this. Let's say, for example, you had a quarterback like a Tom Brady or John Elway who played in the Super Bowl, and they went 11 for 25 and threw a touchdown and 2 interceptions, but they won the game 35-10. Nobody's going to care because they won. But if they had those same stats and they lost 35-10, they'd be considered a GOAT. And when I say a GOAT, I don't mean greatest of all time. I mean a scapegoat. They'd be the person that everybody blamed for the team's failures. That's how that goes. This is why when you try to take out the criteria of winning from an argument or a debate, as many LeBron James superfans have done to try to push this alleged rivalry between the legacy of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, you lose all validity to your argument. And they know within the inner recesses of their mind that they have to find a way to escape the fact that LeBron James is 3-5 in the finals. So now they have to invalidate other great athletes, other great NBA basketball players' history as far as winning in the finals, because they know they can't use that as a top criteria, because if they use that as a top criteria, they're going to invalidate their own argument pertaining to LeBron James. But just getting back to Russell Westbrook, that's my point in regards to this brother, man. He's a great athlete. He's very charismatic. He's very fun to watch. But that's about it. He's only going to be decor in this era. He's never going to be a champion. At least he won't be the best player on a championship level team. Never. But once again, brothers, we have to move away from emotional based arguments. Why is that? Because if you don't, you only make yourself look like a jackass. Period.
Jazz. Then down 6, Rubio is 1 for 5, only 6 points.
He said I'm stopping Rubio.
But
that's the point, you idiot. For Russell Westbrook to say, I'm not going to stop the Utah Jazz, as you yourself have implied, I'm going to stop Rubio. What is he saying? He's saying, I only care about my own personal matchup. He does not even grasp the sentiment that he's putting forth when he makes a statement like that. Because everything with Russell Westbrook is about machismo. He does not have the intellect. He's like a boxer with great power in his hands, but who does not have an understanding of timing and distance. He's going to get outboxed by a smarter fighter. And that's what always happens to him. And you guys just don't get it because, no disrespect to you, Shaq, you were not the brainiest player when you played. That's why you needed Phil Jackson.
But that's not going to win the game. That's my whole thing. And I was like, why would you do something to win the game when you're down? Here's a guy who's +9 on being on the floor. His team is up 9 and he's only got 6 points because you're creating opportunities for other people.
And beyond that, Ricky Rubio does not care if you're trying to stop him. He actually wants that. He wants you to be focused on stopping him because he's a point guard by nature. Both he and Donovan Mitchell represent this new era of combo guards, which harkens back to the late 80s, of course, with the bad boy Pistons backcourt, where both players can score or distribute. That's what makes them so potent. You don't know how they're going to attack you. And then on the defensive end, they stand out. They're exemplary. So they intend on outsmarting the Oklahoma City Thunder. Coming into this series, I picked the Thunder to win in 6. We'll see what happens down the stretch of this game. We knew coming in that they were extremely dumb. but I thought that their talent may be able to carry the way against a very inexperienced Utah Jazz team. But it's looking like they're catching their mojo, the Utah Jazz I'm talking about, and they're really starting to feel their rhythm.
People, as we run the play, when you shouldn't, because here you have your pressure in Rubio, and you have so much concern about not letting him score. I don't mind Rubio shooting three-pointers. Let him shoot three-pointers. He's not a three-point shooter, but he is a great passer, and he gets the hockey assist from Donovan Mitchell. And again, freeze it here. If you have the opportunity, you don't have to guard Rubio here. Just get into the lane.
He has to guard Rubio there, Kenny Smith, because he's already promised that he's going to shut him down. He didn't say in response to the question that was asked to him at the press conference, well, you're right. We had some defensive miscommunication there. We're going to talk about it with our coaches, and we're going to try to resolve that issue in Game 4. That's what a responsible, mentally mature NBA player would say in a press conference when he's asked about a certain player going off. Not, I'm going to stop him in Game 4. You'll never hear LeBron James say that. You'll never hear Michael Jordan say that. You'll never hear Kobe Bryant say that. They'll be responsible enough to say, well, we have to talk about that with our coaches, because they're thinking macrocosmically. Russell does not have that ability, and nothing against the brother. Once again, from what I understand, he was a standout student in high school, in college. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on his intellect, but there's a big difference between his intellect overall and his basketball IQ. He just does not have it. He cannot see the big picture, and that affects you offensively and defensively. Because on offense, he gets tight in pressurized situations and he makes bad decisions because he wants to succeed so bad, but he just cannot do it. He has blinders on the sides of his eyes, which hurt his peripheral. When I say blinders, I'm talking about proverbially speaking. Defensively, you have to have your head on a swivel. You have to be able to see the ball and your man at the same time. He can't do that. Why is that? Because once again, he cannot see the court panoramically. He zones in on targets.
Let Rubio take three-point shots, because you don't want Ingles, you don't want Mitchell, and these guys to be anxious because all of a sudden freeze it again. Russell Westbrook, that's his rotation. He should be rotating to the big, and since he doesn't and he's out here occupied with Rubio, you get a dunk and you get guys off that are really good offensive players.
Thank you, Kenny Smith.
Players. You cannot pay that much attention on the offensive end. You pressure him in the ball, but wait, freeze it. Russell Westbrook's not paying attention to the basketball. Donovan Mitchell is the most dangerous man on the court.
No, Donovan Mitchell is the most dangerous man in the series.
And you're not paying attention to him? No, I'm not caring about Rubio. I'm not sticking. Freeze it again. I'm not sticking to Rubio when there's a drive to the basket.
Yeah, because he wants to give up the layup rather than allow Rubio to make a three. Because that's all he's concerned about is numbers. That's the same mentality that fed into his stat padding during the regular season. And a lot of his fans got upset with that. It's just the truth. He stat padded offensively, and now you see that same mentality starting to transverse its way over to the defensive side of the ball, and it's only hurting his team. That is why I state that Russell Westbrook is best as a one-man show. I've told that to you brothers numerous times already, and it's shameful that a player like Donovan Mitchell is the best player on the floor as a rookie, that he has a far higher basketball IQ than Russell Westbrook, and he's only a rookie. He probably has the highest basketball IQ of anyone on the floor other than Ricky Rubio. And then when you add in the factor that he's a non-pro athlete, that makes him the best player on the floor. And I don't think that it's particularly close, because Paul George is still a very good player, but he's not a great player.
That is the actual shot I would want. He made it night one, but it caused his offensive rebounds ability. You can't pay that much attention to a guy who doesn't want to score.
You have to pay that much attention to him if everything's all about you, Kenny Smith.
Or you have to pay attention to guys. He doesn't want to score. He has one good. He's a pro. He's going to have games.
39% shooter in the series. 7 out of 20 from.
But that's exactly what he wanted. I guarantee you. When Ricky Rubio heard Russell Westbrook say that, he laughed to himself. He said, "This guy's a fucking idiot. He's going to be so concerned with me that he's going to provide wide open shots for my teammates. I got 28 by default because you guys left me wide open. If you're going to stay at home with me, all I'm going to do is cut you to death with my passes. It's going to be Joe Ingles wide open for three. And you still don't understand that because you're so concerned with how you looked personally as opposed to your team. But anyway, you see how foolish Kenny Smith made Shaq look. Shaq still has a confounded look on his face because, I mean, as big as his head is, I guarantee there's not much working inside of there. No disrespect to the brother. But anyway, peace.